All right, everyone. Within any society, you have the economy. Now, the question becomes, what do you want out of your economy? What are the goals that you want to see achieved as you play out the economic game? Because remember, you still have those fundamental problems. You have scarcity. Because you have scarcity, you have those choices you got to make. What are you going to make? How are you going to make it? For whom are you going to make it for? Okay, now, when you're a country that looks at the economy, you have to have some kind of goals for it because does your economy work? Does it not work? Are people able to meet the needs, meet their wants, or are they not able to? And within any economy, people are going to naturally have some kind of goals. That's just how it works. So today is kind of a brief overview of the different kinds of goals that are in an economy, specifically kind of our economy. Now, what can happen, spoiler alert, some of these goals will conflict with each other because sometimes these goals are paradoxical. So keep that in mind as we kind of go through this. So first, basically, economic freedom. People choose their own things like occupations, your employer, the use of your money. If you're a business owner, you choose what you're going to produce, pretty much the what, when, where. What are you going to produce? How are you going to produce it? For whom you're going to produce it for? You got to decide all those things. And again, economic freedom. Ideally, there's no one there to tell you what to do. It is up to you to make the best decision that you can. All the risk is yours. At the same time, all the rewards are yours. Secondly, economic efficiency. Everybody wants things to be more efficient. Produce more resources or produce more goods and services while using less resources. So remember back to the PPC, the production possibilities curve. The idea, what can we do to push this out further and further and further? How could we make our economy more efficient? The more efficient our economy is, the more stuff we have. If we're wasteful with our resources, well, that's less stuff. That's less goods and services for us to enjoy. And again, technology plays a role in this. Economic equity. Pretty much this is where, we make sure everybody can play. We have laws on the books that discriminate on regards to age, sex, race, religion, disability, so on and so forth. And so again, the idea is, you just can't, hire somebody because they're a particular race or something. But also on the flip side, we have things like national state minimum wage. And we also have things like lemon laws, which, say that, you can't lie about your product. Yeah, drink Dr. Pepper and you'll live forever type stuff. You can't say that. At the same time, you have other laws that say, like, if you were to purchase a vehicle and it kind of falls apart, like in 2 days, there are laws on the books for you to be able to get your money back. But again, this is kind of the idea of the main thing is this. You make sure everybody can play the economic games and things are done as above board as they can be. Economic security, this is kind of where we get things, like unemployment insurance, those types of things, Social Security, Medicare. And really the idea is, bad things are going to happen. That's life. So if you think back to the business cycle, you have your peak, you got your trough, recession, recovery, those things. The idea is this. When things start going bad, you have the recession or you have a depression, you have some kind of safety net in place in order to protect those things. At the same time, if you get laid off, you get mauled by a bear and have some kind of injury, you come down with the Rona, illness, other kinds of disabilities. There's something in place to protect people's economic interests. So again, many states have set up their own kind of unemployment compensation programs, help workers. And again, on the flip side, you got federal government. You have Social Security, which is kind of a combination retirement slash welfare thing. To, if you're old, you can retire on Social Security, in theory, not really. And then at the same time, if you're somebody who's disabled, you can collect Social Security as well. And then, Medicare, pretty much government run healthcare to help people that need that. The idea of full employment, everybody likes the idea of full employment. With that, it's the idea that everybody has a job. And governments will try to enact policies to kind of make this a reality. During the Great Depression, there was actually a law to have full employment. Didn't quite work out, but this was the employment out of 1960 or 1946. And today, what they do is politicians, governments, what they will do is they'll try to enact policies that may not be a law per se, but it's things that will get people back to work. Lower taxes for companies or stuff like that. We'll get to the specifics of that later. Price stability. Governments try to keep prices stable. Mainly, the idea is to combat inflation. And inflation is a rise in the prices of goods and services over time. Usually, this is due to loss of value in the currency. So, like you see the kind of little picture down here. 1970, cup of coffee, 25 cents. 2019, $1.59. Doesn't mean that the coffee is worth more. Inflation just means that your money that you use to spend on coffee is worth less. Again, we'll get to the idea of inflation in more detail at a later time. And then the idea is economic growth, to constantly grow the economy. Again, everybody wants a better job. Everybody wants a newer car. Everybody wants, newer and nicer stuff. The new Xbox, a new PlayStation, a new house, new shoes, new shirts. What this means is the economy constantly grows. People are always consuming. People are always buying the latest new thing. And everybody wants this stuff. So if the economy keeps growing, people can have nicer and nicer stuff. Now, here's the thing. With all this is a trade-off. One goal can and will conflict with another. So, like, for example, you have the, the current trade war with China that we're in, where, we're, slapping tariffs on Chinese goods, which means, China wants to sell us stuff, we tax it, raising the price. Because really the problem was this: products made in China for cheaper than they can in the United States. Now, for the consumer, that's great because they're cheaper to produce, which means savings gets passed down to the consumer, so they can buy more stuff. Now, it hurt the workers within the United States because they would lose their jobs. So again, it's like people want cheaper things, but it can cost jobs overall in an economy, which means those people that lost their jobs can't buy the cheap stuff. So again, it's a tug and pull. It's like not everything is kind of a, on its own. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So if one thing gets affected, another thing will get affected as well. So it's kind of like when you take a rock and you throw it in the water and you get the ripple effects. That's what happens with things in an economy, except you have multiple rocks going in at the same time, and one ripple will conflict with another ripple. And this is the short list of economic goals. There are others that are there, but again, it's kind of like when you deal with people. Everybody has kind of an idea of what the economy should look like. And again, it depends on where you fall. If you're a capitalist, hardcore capitalist, economic security, economic prosperity, economic, pretty much anything economic, will look very, very differently from somebody who's a hardcore communist. So It really just depends. Like, what are your ideas of the economy? What should the economy do? And, these are questions that, countries have always tried to figure out. Because remember, ancient Mesopotamia, back when humankind was getting started, pretty much the first economies were set up around what do we do with our food? We may have a great harvest this year. Next year, our harvest may suck, and we'd all starve to death. So the first economies were based on pretty much this: store, save food when the times are good, store it up by the government. When times are bad, you have the store of food to be able to keep everybody alive. So now fast forward, it's become, where do we get our iPhones and stuff? But the same principle is still the same. Scarce resources forces us to make choices. Then we have to figure out what this is going to look like. We figure it out through government policy. We figure it out through our own personal life. And we have to come up with a plan. And that's about all. Peace out.